Do you have slides?
I do.
Oh,
I do.
you've grown up over the years.
Well, Julia's done it for me.
Oh, Julia did it. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is our patient, Jay Versluis, who is also the AV expert, who's been around a good long time, which is a good thing. So you get a little more than a motivational minute. You have until noon.
Oh, okay.
And then after lunch, we're going to raffle off one of Jay's books and another book. So that'll encourage you guys to be back at 1 o'clock.
Thank you so much, Karen. So yes, indeed, I'm not working in the medical profession. I am a patient who's come through the medical profession, and hence I've picked up quite a few bits and pieces along the way. And I thought I wanted to share some with you because it is quite a motivational story and an inspiring story of survivorship, really. So my name is Jay Versluis. There should be a picture of me here, but thankfully you can see me, so that's cool. I've been diagnosed with colorectal cancer when I was 43. That was in 2015, and it seemed to be it was a really exotic case, and I've been through a lot of ups and downs because the regular chemotherapy treatments just didn't work for me. So I've been spending 2 years going through cancer hell until I finally survived against the odds, and I wanted to share that with you. What makes my cancer so difficult is that it's genetic. So hence I got it at such an early age. It's hereditary, it's in my family. We did a genetic test. It's actually true, it's coming from my father's side of the family. And it is, I have two conditions. One is known as Lynch syndrome, which I believe is also called mismatch repair. And the other that makes this slightly more complicated is that I have this KRAS mutation, which makes my cancer appear to grow a lot more, aggressive and fast. So time is of the essence during the treatments. So it was really a massive kind of journey from, hey, we don't even know what these symptoms are, from, cancer isn't the massive bad thing that it once used to be, to, oh my God, I'm going to die, and none of the treatments that we're trying are working. And that was a problem. So let me share with you my absolute superheroes and how we've approached this. We didn't do this across one hospital. We did this through a group of doctors that were working across two somewhat competing hospitals, which were, of course, Mount Sinai Hospital, as well as Baptist Health, South Florida. It's what a shame that Mount Sinai should be on the left-hand side. One of those things. Don't know why it doesn't show. One of those things. So imagine this, that Mount Sinai, cancer center is on the left, where the blue space is. And it was interesting because my insurance was covering Baptist, but it wasn't covering Mount Sinai. So I started my treatment at Baptist and then gradually moved over into Mount Sinai. And in the end, doctors from both hospitals were helping me survive. It's a very, very exciting story. Oh, there we go. That's the slide we were waiting for. That's the guy on the bike. That's me on the bike, exactly. So that's kind of the highlight. I'm coming to that in a minute. In total, I've had 6 surgeries, from major to kind of medium. They were never minor. They were always major or medium. I've had 20 chemotherapy infusions in total. None of them actually worked, which was quite fascinating. I've also had 29 radiation treatments. There were 60 planned, but we stopped after 29. But none of that really saved my life, and my life was literally going from worse to seriously terrible. What did turn it all around were 12, not actually 12, I think after 3 in immunotherapy infusions, we saw an amazing turnaround in me. And 12 did the trick, and the cancer was gone. And what I got was essentially presidential treatment, and I feel very happy that I got that. It's very exciting. I got the same stuff that Jimmy Carter got, and I had exactly the same quote at the end of my journey that he had in this slide. After immunotherapy, they didn't find any cancer at all. And that is absolutely fascinating because this is exactly how it worked for me. And both my doctors, both my surgeons couldn't quite believe it when they opened me up to put my plumbing back together. There was all kinds of horrible things going on. So when they put me back together, when they had me open on the table, they thought, hey, we can see there's a major mess that's been going on in your body, but there's no evidence of cancer. That's absolutely mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. The magic ingredient in my case was Keytruda, aka pembrolizumab. Who comes up with these names? I've spoken to Ray earlier, who's at the Merck stand. Thank you so much for talking to me, Ray. And we talked about this. When I got it, Keytruda wasn't the first-line treatment for colon cancer. He told me that it currently is. Is that true? Is that right? I don't know. Is it? That's amazing. That's so cool to hear. So I had to go, in order for my insurance to approve this, I had to be on the regular chemotherapy drug for colon cancer, which was oxaliplatin at the time. And if that doesn't work, we can go to another one, which was, in my case, was the FOLFIRI treatment, irinotecan. And that also didn't work in conjunction with radiation therapy. So let me introduce you to the superheroes. In my book, the absolute superheroes, that I'm so grateful that you guys work together so well. These guys have made it possible that I am still here today and talking to you today. So it all started in 2015 when I had a weird kind of UTI and a kind of medium diarrhea that kept coming and going. So I went to see my physician, Dr. Lester de Leon, my primary care physician at the time. And he said, you know what, those symptoms are bizarre and we don't really know what they are. But I can check you out with an ultrasound and I can tell you there is some kind of mass in your colon. We don't know what it is, but because of your infection, we can't do a colonoscopy. That is what we'd ideally like to do, to figure out what is this thing. So we couldn't do that, and we had to work about 6 months to cool down that infection. I was literally on every single antibiotic known to man, on both in the hospital as well as on home infusion. And I think it was I was on Merum, vancomycin, I was on Zosyn, I was on something else beginning with S, I really forgot. But all of that together, after a course of about almost 6 months, cooled down the infection well enough that we could do a colonoscopy. And that was when he referred me to GastroHealth, where I met Dr. Markus Somstein, who would later become my colon surgeon. I'm glad I met him because he performed the colonoscopy, only could go in 15 centimeters and said, hey, I've seen this too many times before, it looks like cancer. Good thing is, I can operate on you the next day. And he did that. That was in February, 1st of February 2016. And that was a big shock. They told me after that you need to go to the ER straight away. That was at Baptist Hospital, and we need to get this taken care of. But we can do it, no problem. The idea was take up my sigmoid colon, take up my cecum, take up my appendix. It left me with a colostomy. But the idea was we're going to give you 6 weeks of rest and then put you on chemotherapy, and then hopefully the whole thing is going to go away by the end of the year. That didn't quite happen. So it turns out the oxaliplatin didn't work. I was on about 6 or 8 infusions of it, and it turned out they missed a tumor in my bladder. Through proximity, my colon cancer had invaded my bladder at the time. And that was terrible because that is where it kept growing, and it was just not responding to oxaliplatin. So we resected the tumor twice until my oncologist at Baptist said, look, this stuff isn't working. I don't know what to do with you. The only thing I can suggest is a radical cystectomy. That's really the only thing we can do. Just cut it out with margins and just be done with it. But the problem is we don't do procedures like that here at Baptist. And remember, this was in 2016. This is before they had their large Miami Cancer Institute, I believe it's now called, that big new building that they built. And it wasn't available at the time. They didn't have the urology staff that could do it. So I was in touch with a urologist then, Dr. Danny Martinez. He said, hey, I don't do these procedures, but a mentor of mine does, namely Dr. Jorge Caso. He does all my cystectomies to me. I remember him saying that, and I was thinking, how many cystectomies is that? 5 a week? That's terrible. But he said, yeah, contact this guy, Dr. Jorge Caso. And I was really ambivalent of meeting the man because I thought, my goodness, this is terrible. The guy wants to take out my bladder. This is horrific. What a terrible thing to think of. So I noted down his number in my mobile phone and called him the bladder butcher. It's crazy because when I met the man, he was the sweetest, most kind person I've ever met in the medical profession. One of the many kind-hearted people in the medical profession. So he just sat there and said, hey, I've read your medical history. I hope I won't be doing much of anything for you. I think suggesting a cystectomy was a little bit of a harsh step, so let's not go there. Let's see if we can do other treatments before, and that is thankfully what we did. He was working not at Baptist Hospital, he was working at the time at Mount Sinai Hospital, something our insurance wasn't covering at the time. But him and Dr. Nicholas Koritsky, also from Mount Sinai, they both listened to our case. We met Dr. Koritsky literally the same week we met Dr. Caso. And Dr. Koritsky said, hey, I think I'd like to try radiation therapy on you to stop the bleeding in your bladder. There was blood clots kept coming out, and it was all very difficult. He said, no, let's try radiation therapy. But what I'm reading here also is that you've got these two conditions that make your cancer seriously worse than it really should be. And those two conditions, i.e. KRAS mutation and the Lynch syndrome, together makes you an ideal candidate for this new type of treatment that we have, which is immunotherapy. But I don't really know all that much about it, but my buddy, Mike Kuznia, does, and he referred me to him. He's also, Dr. Mike Kuznia, also here, speaks after me today after lunch. Looking forward to that. I'm basically the warm-up act. It's great. So he said, yes, absolutely, I must meet the man. Let's see what we can do. Let's try one course of this other chemotherapy treatment, which was irinotecan, in conjunction with radiation treatment. So then I was treated at Mount Sinai. And it seemed to have kind of worked. The tumor at least shrank, and I was kind of almost responding to treatment. So we were all thinking, maybe we're going in the right direction here. But then something rather unexpected happened, and that is that I started urinating from my anus rather than my penis, which was horrific for me. I didn't know what was going on. Neither did anyone else. So we deduced that I must have a fistula, a connection between my small intestine and the bladder. And the problem with that is that normal food intake then goes and keeps reinfecting me. And that was the problem. So we had to stop the treatment. We stopped radiation. We stopped the irinotecan. But the moment we did that, due to my two conditions, my cancer literally came back with a vengeance and thought, irinotecan, I eat that for breakfast, man, but no longer radiation. That means there's nothing that's stopping the tumor from growing. And growing, it kept doing, and it kept wreaking havoc with my health and with my life. So by the end of 2016, I'm now severely immobilized. I can barely walk around. I have to have a cane to walk around. My wife had to push me around in a wheelchair to get around in the hospital. And we weren't sure if or how I was going to survive. It was a horrific, horrific time. And my health was just getting worse with all the other bits and pieces that I had. So Dr. Kuznia, once again, brilliant idea. I was admitted at Baptist Hospital in ER. While I was there, Dr. Kuznia from a different hospital, we conversed via email and text message. He suggested, hey, you keeping reinfecting yourself, why don't we put you on TPN? That's a genius idea to say, look, you don't have any regular nutrition through your esophagus anymore. We'll just inject it in you, and therefore you don't reinfect it yourself again. And maybe we're going to get you ready for that immunotherapy treatment. So it was terrible. It was the beginning of 2017 by then, and as I said, my health was on the fritz, and we started these treatments. We started in February 2017, and remember, I could barely walk. I don't know how to get around. I was barely sleeping. Within 3 treatments, imagine that, every 3 weeks, and compare the 3-hour chemotherapy infusion to the 30-minute immunotherapy infusion. Within 3 treatments, so we're talking about 2 months, just a little over 2 months, from not being able to walk, I could start riding my bicycle again. It's an amazing story. I couldn't believe it myself. I could barely walk around the block where we live on 2nd Street down in South Beach. And every day, once I was on Keytruda, every day my health was getting a little bit better, literally keeping strength day to day. It was a wonderful experience. And I got better so much that in April, end of April, beginning of May 2017, I was able to ride my bike, what I hadn't been able to do for like a year or two, from 2nd Street all the way to 41st Street to Mount Sinai for further treatment. And we couldn't believe it. It's an amazing story, and we couldn't believe the turnaround it gave us. It's fascinating stuff. So we ended the immunotherapy treatment with 12 sessions in about September 2017, by which time I was fit. I felt really good. The only thing was I still had a colostomy bag, and I was still doing TPN at the time, just to make sure. But the fistula and all that was still there. The cancer wasn't exactly reversed. It was kind of, it was at that point, it was still in treatment, but there was a lot of plumbing that had to be reversed. So we gave me about 4 weeks of a pause before we scheduled that surgery. In my mind, I always know this as the penultimate surgery. And with a procedure like that, you really have to have 2 surgeons. One, of course, should be my gastroenterologist and colon surgeon, Dr. Markus Zomstein, whom I've been in touch with through all this time. But also, we need a urologist, because at that point, we weren't quite sure, can we actually save my bladder? What happens when they open me up? What is my insides going to look like? How are they going to fix me back up? So it turns out, and it's just one of those strokes of fate, Dr. Casso was headhunted by Baptist Hospital away from Mount Sinai. So now he was working together at Baptist together with Markus Zomstein, who the 2 major surgery guys could now work together in the same OR, which was amazing. So these 2 guys could perform the surgery together. Dr. Casso was actually on holiday, but he came back just to perform that surgery. Isn't that amazing? That's dedication to a job, really. He phoned me the day before and said, hey, just wanted to run these options by you. A, we may be able to save your bladder. That'd be awesome. B, we may not be able to save your bladder, so you're going to have to maybe live with a permanent urostomy. Or option C, we can save part of the bladder, and we can do something like a bladder graft from a piece of intestine. I just appreciate him calling me and speaking about this to me for 45 minutes on the phone the day before the surgery. It was absolutely mind-blowing. So the 2 guys go to work on that fateful day in October 2017, and it was an 8-hour procedure in OR, and they opened me up, and much like Jimmy Carter said earlier on that previous slide, they didn't find any evidence of cancer at all. So Keytruda had literally, or my body, thanks to Keytruda, could literally take care of all of that by itself. And it was just, that's how I was feeling as well. I could really feel this happening. It's a wonderful, wonderful story. Dr. Casso said, we did so many biopsies of so many things in your body, and none of it came back positive. So the cancer's literally gone. And other than a massive mess inside you, we don't really see any evidence that there was ever any cancer. So that was really that story. And there's so many people who've been involved in this 2-year-long process. And Julia has been very kind. She's compiled this little presentation for me, because last time I did this, I was just kind of rambling on, and it's coming out different every time. So it's, it's one of those things. I really like this compilation of pictures here. This is what we've taken as selfies throughout my treatment here. This is Dr. Kuzny, of course. Look at my face, how it changes from picture to picture. So this is, I've had this thyroid condition. So it's very swollen in various places. This is Karen. Both Dr. Kuznia and Karen went through this with me, literally treatment after treatment. This was Cheryl here. She's from the office. She is amazing at juggling appointments around. Even with Dr. Kuznia now, his appointment book is full for the next 2 months. How about we put you in next Thursday? It's kind of, she makes these things happen. Unbelievable. There's Michael, of course. Michael's here as well. Who's, look at my face, my goodness. He's in charge of the infusion suite at Mount Sinai. He's been giving me many, many funky treatments and port flushes. Thank you so much. There's Kenya. Kenya is an infusion nurse also at Mount Sinai. She's been through cancer herself. It's very wonderful to speak to her and celebrate the success with you all. There's so many other people involved, and I remember all their names, and it's just very emotional, because this whole thing has happened to me 4 years ago. So it was October 2017. We're now in October 2021. It's absolutely amazing. That's Dr. Casso and me by the bedside. It's very exciting. This was the day, I think, was it the day after surgery? Unbelievable. And look at the two happy faces. Very cool. So many nurses who took care of me throughout this time. People who put PICC lines in. This one, I remember this was Lourdes. She was an ostomy nurse over at Baptist Hospital. I spoke to her just a week or so before we did this penultimate surgery. Literally, she was putting felt tip marker pens on my body where potential permanent ileostomies and urostomies might go. And we were discussing this what happens if I have a permanent ileostomy as well as a urostomy? How's that going to work? Because the ileostomies are on the right, much like the urostomies. What are those things? Unbelievable. So many people who've helped me through this. So thank you so much to all of you for listening. Thank you so much to everyone who's involved in my well-being. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to all of you. I could celebrate another birthday, and I'm not even 50 yet. This is exciting. So it was an emotional roller coaster ride, and I was determined to write it all down while it's fresh in my mind. So I've written this book, which is a thick book here. It's not because I'm using large font. It's just because there was a lot to tell, and there's so much that happened, and how the universe kind of just lined up all these little pieces, like Dr. Castle getting headhunted over to the other hospital so the two surgeons could perform this one thing. Unbelievable. So it's called Broken Bowels, Tales of a Super Survivor. You can get it from Amazon. I have a few copies here. I've also narrated this. It's 12 and a half hours. If you want to hear me read it out, it has a whole different impact. 12 and a half hours, which I could go on for, but I understand we all need to break for lunch. So thank you so much, everyone.